In this video, we'll see the importance of comparable interface. So in the last part, what we have done is we have seen something called as comparator. So if you want to sort elements or a well-defined elements, like if you have the collection of integers, you have a collection of string. So in order to change that, to sort it or to change the logic of those sorting, we can use something called as comparator. But in this example, what we'll do is, instead of using the inbuilt classes, we'll use user-defined classes, and we will try to solve or sort the collection which will have a user-defined objects. For that, what we'll do is we'll create a class and we'll name this class as EMP just to define it's an employee. And in this EMP class, you just have two variables. One variable is EID, which is employee ID. So let's follow some conventions. We'll say EID. And then the second one will have ename. So we have EID and ename. Now to assign values to these variables, we can use setters or we can simply use a constructor. So let's define a parameterized constructor here. So we'll say public EMP in bracket, let's accept the values. So we'll say int id, comma, we'll say string name. Now once you got those two values, we can assign EID is equal to, we'll say ID, and we'll say ename is equal to name. So now once you got the values, so we'll say name here. Okay. Now what next? So with the constructor, we have assigned the values. So what we can do is to pass these values, we'll go to this main function, and somewhere here, what we'll define, we'll create the object of EMP. We'll say object name is, let's say it's obj equal to new EMP, and then we can pass the values. So we'll say employee number 1, and the name of the employee is, let's say, Navin. So now the first employee here is with ID 1 and name is Navin. Clear? So this one will go here in this ID, and this ID will be assigned to EID. This Navin will go to this name, and it get assigned to this ename. But here we are talking about the collection of employees. So let's say you want a collection of 10 employees. So in that scenario, instead of defining 10 different objects, what we can do is we can create a list of 10 employees. So let's remove this here. What we'll do is, instead of creating single object, individual objects, we'll create an array list. You can even create a list here. And the type of the element will be EMP. We'll say it is employees. We'll say EMPs, and then we'll say it is new array list. So we'll say this is array list, and as per Java 7, you don't have to define it again. So once you have mentioned here it is EMP, it will automatically take that EMP here. Let's import the package. So to import a package, you can simply say Control Shift I. So this is organization of your list or organization of your imports. Okay. Now what we'll do is let's add some of the variables here, or some of the employees here. So to add employees, what we'll do is we'll say emps dot. There's a method called as add. In this, I need to add a new employee. So we'll say new emp. We can directly provide an anonymous object here. So we say 1, comma, in double quotes, we'll say Navin. So this is your one object or one employee. I want some more employees. We'll say emps dot add. Let's say the second employee here is new emp. We'll say it is 2, comma, let's say name is Sunil, and we'll say emps dot add, and let's add one more. We'll say new emp, and we'll define it as 3, comma, let's say Rashmi. So we have this 3 objects now. Now what we'll do is let's just print those values first. So we'll see how to print. We'll use a for loop, enhanced for loop, and we'll say emp e colon obj. Not it's emps. Now, so once you got the enhanced for loop, what we can do is to print these values. We'll say system, or we'll say system dot out dot print ln, and let's print the value. So if I try to print E, the problem with this E is it will print the hash code. So if you remember in the tutorial of toString method, we have seen in order to print the values of an object, we need to implement, or we need to override a method called as toString. So it's a public string toString method here, and this will return. So we'll say return, it is eid here, and we'll say plus, in double quotes we'll mention a colon just to separate your eid with ename, and then we'll print here ename, and we can simply print here e. So if I run this application, you can see we will be getting all those employee names. But let's say I want to sort this list depend upon the names. Now what we can do is, in order to sort those elements, what we can simply do is we'll say to sort the elements, we have this class called as collection, and we'll say collection dot sort, and we'll pass an object which is emp, or we'll pass emps. But unfortunately, you can see it gives you an error. It says it says a method sort in the type list is not applicable for the argument arraylist emp. So that means you cannot sort this emps is because it's not a normal, it's not a predefined class object. It's a user-defined class object. So in order to sort those elements, we need to do something with this class. And what exactly we need to do, that we'll see in the next part of the video.